All right, we are live. Welcome to episode, welcome to episode 38. I went back and looked, and this is episode 38 of Turf Chat. And so I thought where we would start is we're going to introduce our guests. I know that we have people in here. I'll remind everybody as you keep coming in, just to keep your mics muted. And if you have any questions, though, feel free to unmute and ask a question. Let's first start by introducing the two guests that are going to be doing some talking today. And first up, I'll talk to Larry Stoll.
Okay, hello everybody. We haven't done this in a long time, so this will be fun to kick these off again.
And of course,
plant in San Diego.
I cut out there for a second, Larry. I think my connection sucks. One thing I will remind everybody, I'm kind of hosting this thing. What's your dog's name there, Zach?
Arlo.
One thing I will remind everybody is, from my standpoint as the host of this, I got two people in the house using Zooms for meetings. So sometimes I bounce out, but the recording stays on. So Larry or Zach, if I bounce out and you notice that, just take over. And I think you're going to be doing most of the talking anyway. And then when things pick up, I'll come back in. The next guest that's going to be sharing some information is Zach Bauer. Zach, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Zach Bauer. I'm the golf course superintendent at Valley Country Club in Centennial, Colorado. It's about 17 miles southeast of Denver.
Southeast of Denver. You all are somewhat open for business because I've had to reroute several student interns out that way, although they're all, I think, one's at Castle Pines, but the others are up in the Vail area, Cordillera and Roaring Fork. So I'll introduce myself. My name is John Kaminsky. I'm a professor at Penn State, turfgrass science. I kind of was the one that kicked these things off many moons ago, to just try to have people share information. Sometimes we made it educational, sometimes it was just kind of conversational. I thought we'd bring them back in this day and age of Zooms that everybody's doing now. I think most people are more comfortable coming into these things. Some people are annoyed by them now because you have to do so many of them. But anyway, we're bringing them back, and I want to thank Larry especially because he's the one that kind of came up with the idea for this topic, which is going to be about the NCRS soil, NCRS, is that right? NCRS?
No, NRCS.
NRCS, sorry.
Elizabeth Girdle sent me a note that it's, it's NRCS.
Did I put it out as NCRS? I don't know. I'm losing my mind. But I guess I don't work in a government agency where acronyms are just so common. So I have to say it out. But anyway, the topic was that. And Larry had mentioned some discussion with Zach because of a post that was posted on Twitter showing some soils. And that's kind of where this whole thing got kicked off and started. So I'm going to host and be paying attention to people and trying to let people in. If you have any questions, feel free to chime in, or you can put them in the chat if you don't want to interrupt somebody right away, and we'll try to get the questions answered. But again, feel free to chime in whenever you can. But Larry, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen with some luck here. It's a little bit awkward. We'll make sure that everybody can see what's going on. That's showing up okay? See it? Okay. All right, yeah, this is the post that Zach made, I don't know, it was maybe 2 weeks ago, something like that. And he was having this, he's looking at this soil, and it does turn to rock. And we have a lot of situations where this type of thing happens. And I'm always curious to get some ground truth on the Web Soil Survey, which is a package, it's a website that is run by the NRCS, which is the National Resource Conservation Service. And you can just Google Web Soil Survey to get to this page. And you can find a bunch of information about your location mostly, but not everything. I actually tried to look at Augusta National, and they do not have data for Augusta National. They managed to have some urban land in there with no data, so they managed to slide by. In a lot of cases, people have top dressed heavily or have modified or moved the soils around, so it doesn't always work out well. But that underlying soil, the base soil that a golf course is built on, can really influence the way the course operates, and mainly in water movement, as what we've seen the problems with. There's always other issues, but I'll let, from this point, let's let Zach talk about the situation that he came into when he took over at Valley Country Club. And then we'll go through his soils at Valley Country Club. And if we have time, we'll look at a little bit of the soils from Torrey Pines, which is a nice contrast. Both locations have a similar difficulty in managing water, but for different reasons. So let's pass it over to Zach.
All right, excellent. So a little bit of background. I've been at Valley now for 2 years. So I got here in April of 2018. So I've been here 2 seasons now. Prior to that, I was a superintendent at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs for 12 years. So definitely coming from the Broadmoor, it's all decomposed granite, Pikes Peak granite, some of the youngest granite in the world, actually. So pretty, not terrible, pretty good soils there dealing with it. But coming here, I got a real quick taste. April was pretty wet, and then beginning of May was pretty wet. And then, Memorial Day weekend of 2018, we're getting into the little bit hotter seasons and whatnot, a little bit hotter. I wanted to try to do deep and frequent, go heavy and then let it dry down, go heavy, let it dry down. And I got burned, literally, just got burned by it. I couldn't go more than 2 days without watering. And I just got to a point where it just wasn't feasible. And so I just got into a rhythm of watering by ET, nightly, going off nightly or daily ET rates and watering based on that. Just because there was no way. This place dried down so fast. I just didn't understand. I figured, my minimal experience, up here in the Denver area with the soils, I've again been out the Broadmoor for 12 years, totally different soils. So, I figured I could, especially with some clay, a little bit more water holding capacity. It just didn't work. So, went back, just started watering nightly, by ET rates. Our sweet spot is like 60 to 65% of ET. So, that's pretty much kind of where we have been for the past 2 seasons. Just every day, just watering that 60 to 65%. You get really good, you get recovery. Come in the morning, place looks good. And then by the afternoon, it starts drying down, starts, bruising up a little bit. And then you just go through the cycle every day here. So it turned out, we got a good system down. But as far as, trying to do what I originally wanted to do, it just didn't work. And, one of the things about Valley is, it was built first 9 holes was built in 1956, second 9 holes were built in 1960. So, 60-year-old golf course, some aerification, throughout the years. I mean, obviously they've been top dressing greens, since the late 50s, early 60s, good sand cap on greens, about 4 or 5 inches. Their native soil push up, greens, you definitely get down below that 6 inch mark, and it's, it's nice and firm, and it's a native soil, down there. So, but as far as fairways, roughs, anything of that nature, it's pretty much the same soil that's been out here. You got a little bit of organic cap, a little bit of that, a couple inches of that, but other than some aerification in the last 60 years, that's pretty much it. No sand capping, nothing of that nature. So, yep.
All right. So are you putting sand down now? Or are you considering putting sand down?
So it is, yeah, it's been a priority to try to get to that point and explain to everybody, with my board of directors, with my membership, how that can be beneficial, how it can really help out, really help out the facility, really help out the turf grass and everything. And then from a golfing standpoint too, we, every time, we get a 1/4 inch of rain, we cannot let carts out. It's just not even an option. You get upwards towards 1/2 inch, you're talking, it's almost unplayable, because the water just doesn't go anywhere.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's, why don't we take a look at the reports and then chime in as we go, on what you saw and what we've discussed, and see how it all matches up. So the reports that I like to look at to begin with are a few of them. There's really like three that I think are really nice for taking a look at something like a bad soil like that. It's a rutting survey report, there's an irrigation report, and then there's a physical report. And let's just see if I can get this to advance. Let's first just take a look at the soil types that are here. So this is a soil map. And what, Zach, I think what you were telling me is this area down here where it says NIB is where it's really difficult to manage, right? Isn't that the area?
Right. That's where, out of all that area that you see there on the screen, that NIB area is where we spend 80% of our hand watering. Absolutely.
Okay. Right. Okay. So we'll focus on those soils a little bit more, but you have troubles with the whole area, except for this spot, this WT area. You say that, is that okay to put carts on if it was wet when the rest of the areas don't work, or does that rut also?
Yep. Absolutely. Because if you notice here on that screen, Cherry Creek dissects our golf course in half. So 9 holes on one half, 9 holes on the other half. And if you see Cherry Creek right there, going up towards that lake that is actually dissected by the orange line right there between the WT and the NIB, that was actually Cherry Creek's original path prior to hundreds of years ago. So this whole area with the WT is actually all Cherry Creek sand. So it's actually very good. You can, we can get an inch of rain, you can drive right on it and there's no issues. And it drains exceptionally well. This is one of our best spots on our whole golf course is right there, because the majority of our soil in there is Cherry Creek sand. So that is just an absolutely fantastic area right there for the golf course.
Right. And so the way this web soil survey works is this blue line that you see out here, you draw this line on their map. You locate your course by zooming in to a photograph, aerial photograph of the United States, and then you draw this line all the way around your facility, and that's called the area of interest. And as soon as you draw that line and you're satisfied that you got the area pretty well pinned down, there's an opportunity for you to save that area of interest. So you can save that on your disk drive as a shape file. So then when you come back to the web soil survey, you can reload it back in, and then you get this to this point where this is the, sometimes it's frustrating to get the area of interest located, and then it'll break down things by areas for you. But just give you an idea of what we're talking about as far as rutting. This is a simple just image showing some kind of rutting problems with when your soil breaks down due to the moisture content, it won't allow traffic of any type to be applied. So that's the type of thing that we're going to look at in this first model. And what they do is with these models, they take the physical characteristics of the soil and the chemical characteristics of the soil get involved sometimes, and they try to predict whether or not the soil is going to hold up. And this rutting model was designed for forestry management and whether they would be able to get forest equipment in after rainfalls. But it turns out to really match up nicely with rutting problems at golf courses. I've used this several times. And this gives you a rough idea what the Valley Country Club looks like. And you can see that this red, and I like that they do red is bad. So you can see all the areas where they predict that you would have that type of rutting problem. And it's nice to get this ground truth. That's why I like to test these things out and make sure that they all are matching up. And it does pretty well. So this rutting model, and actually this one really, in most of the cases where I've been called in where there seems to be some irrigation or water management issue, the rutting model really shows up a certain type of problem if it's a clay sort of a soil that's not draining well. And then this gives you what the table looks like. So each one of those visual graphs, they'll provide some sort of a table. Not all of them have a mapping model function in them, but they usually will. This one is, now I'm looking up at the top, this is the soil physical properties, and this none soil, which is the NIB. So they tell you the classification of the soil, it's a none, loam, 1 to 3% slopes. They'll give you that sort of a read on it. And then for that soil from 0 to 6 inches, you can see it's 36% sand, 16% clay. So it's a really pretty clay type of soil. And the big problem that you have in that is this hydraulic conductivity, although it doesn't look like it's too bad, but right under the surface it's 0.42. And at the top of the screen, you'll see here that 7 micrometers per second is equivalent to 1 inch per hour. And modern irrigation systems are put water on pretty heavy, put them up around 0.8 or near 1 inch per hour. So you can see that in particular, just below the 6 to 10 inch part of the profile is definitely not going to be able to keep that water going in. So there's no way you can put water on very fast. So it's going to be cycle soak. So you're going to have to do something to deal with that, that situation. And then if we look at the plant available water, it's 0.14 soil. So that's 14% water holding capacity, you know, and we'd really like to see soils for turf grasses to be a minimum of like 15%. So it doesn't hold much water. So you figure at 14% water holding capacity, that's a 0.14 inches per inch of soil. And I guess, Zach, you're talking about maximum ETs of up around 0.3 inches in the summer, 2.25, 0.3.
Yeah, so our normal daily ETs out here, you know, July, August, hottest part of the time, you know, hottest part of the year, you know, our average for the month is, you know, for the month of July, month of August is basically 0.25. But we've seen ETs, you know, I see ETs in 0.3, 0.31, 0.32, you know, 2 weeks out of the year, you know, or about 2 weeks, you know, days out of the year, you know, in that 3.0 range or plus. So yeah, and it's pretty consistent. I mean, Denver area is, you know, we're a high climate, or, you know, arid, you know, high climate, you know, 6,000 feet, almost 6,000 feet. Where I'm at, I'm about 500 feet higher than Denver itself. So we're close to 6,000 feet here. So high ETs, high UV. Yeah, just we can really lose a lot of moisture pretty quickly.
Right. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to take that, so you figure it's 0.25 inches ET per day in the hot period. You divide that by 0.14, and that tells you how deep your roots have to be able to make it through just one day. So the roots have to, in that case, have to be like 1.8 inches deep, so almost about 2 inches deep. So you know, you probably have roots at around 3 inches. I mean, somewhere around 3 inches, a little bit more maybe. And also there's modifications. So this is, you know, you've been growing on this soil for a while, so it probably holds a little bit more water than this. But like you're saying, you can barely make it through a day. That's pretty much the type of observation you made, because the soil does not hold enough water for you to make it multiple days. So anyway, that's pretty cool from the physical properties. You sort of get an idea of what's happening. And this is it's a combination bad problem. I mean, the soils don't hold much water and they don't let much water go in. So you can't really, you know, there's no real simple way to overcome those issues other than like you're doing this. You can get sort of in the future, get a blend of sand and organic matter built up by top dressing that will then give you some physical stability when you're irrigating. And hopefully you won't get those ruts anymore. And then maybe you can put a little bit more water on a little faster. But that's pretty cool. I like that type of test. The other one, it's always just simple to look at, and we'll just glance at it.
Hey, Larry, before you get into this, I wasn't looking at the units on it, but can you just repeat what you said about how much root depth you have? So it was the ET that you have divided by the water holding capacity. Is that right?
Right, per inch.
Per inch.
So it's inch per inch. Oh man, sorry about that. Oh god. So it's inch per inch. So for every inch of soil, you got 0.14 inches of water holding capacity. So you just divide that into your ET, and that'll tell you how deep your roots have to be. And if they're not that deep, then you don't even make it through a day. You know, that's the problem. And then it's hard to get plants to root into some of these clay soils too. So that's where the aerification, breaking it up and not letting it dry out. Once it dries out, then is it right? You can get that wet up again, Zach, or is it hard to wet up?
Right. It takes it a while. So, I mean, it's not, you know, I kind of have to, and that's what I was saying earlier, like within my first 6 weeks here, you know, this place, I really burned it out, and it took me a while to kind of get it back. You know, it's a great learning experience, but I had membership that was asking me what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
So, so it took me a little bit of time to get it back to, kind of re-wet the soils and whatnot. So I had to kind of overload, I kind of overloaded a little bit just to, cover my butt pretty much. Trying to get the grass to kind of get back to where I needed it. And then again, just staying consistent, with that, 60-65% of ET, every night. So, yep.
Yeah. Never let it dry out. I mean, you're screwed if it dries out. I mean, because you can't re-wet it. Yeah. It's super challenging.
Yep.
Okay. Now this is just the cation exchange capacity. That just reinforces that there's clay soil, a lot of small particles in there with a lot of exchange capacity. Above 10's usually considered a clay soil, so that's all consistent. But there'll be a lot of nutrients in there, so you don't have to worry too much about running out of gas in most cases. But it can be difficult to manage because you have recycle water, and depending on the sodium levels in there, getting that stuff, it almost has to move over the surface of the clay to drain, rather than really percolating all the way through the profile, probably with some of the sodium in
right.
stuff.
So we've been on reclaimed water since the late 80s, I believe 88, 89, in that time frame. And so they put a new irrigation system in 1987, and I think they, when they flipped over to reclaimed water, it was just after they put the new irrigation system in 1987. And I'm actually putting a new irrigation system in right now. So we made it, so many years, 30 something years, 35 years or 33 years with the old system. And that's why it's been nice, digging into the, it's not like I can really get into the soils that much and see, the cross section of the soils all the time, so it's been really, really nice to kind of see when they're digging mainline for, an entire hole. I can actually see a cross section of the soils for 3 foot, which is really, it's been really good. It's really nice to see that. So, but yeah, we've been on reclaim since the late 80s. And so we have, we get high loads of bicarbonates, high loads of salts, throughout our reclaimed water, throughout the year. And then, they've just been building up for 35 years.
Yeah.
Hey, Beth had a question before we get too far away from one of the areas on ET. She asked, it's for you, Zach. She said, when you're basing your ET, I think you said it was like 65%, right? You're watering at 65% ET. She asked if you're using a crop coefficient or just a replacement.
Just the replacement.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's like about for cool season grasses. Well, for fairways, I mean, you'd think it'd be like 80% of ETO, but 60% of ETO is pretty good. You're right on target. I mean, I don't think you can get much less than that, but you figured that out already. I mean, that's the thing that's nice about working with people that have been on the site for at least for a while to figure it out. They know what works. So does it all match up? And that's what's good to confirm on these things. And then I don't think you can, some cases, the idea of just dropping back percentage of ETs doesn't really make a difference because the physical situation restricts you from being able to really get down to where you might think you theoretically could get. Anyway, okay. Let's see the next one. This is a sprinkler irrigation analysis of model that they provide with the web soil survey, and it shows that there's some really tough areas where the red parts are concerned, but we're going to focus on this none for right now. And it says it's somewhat yellow is somewhat restrictive, and if you had to guess what somewhat restrictive would be, based on what we had noticed, it's slow water movement. So it's somewhat restricted because of slow water movement into the soil. So irrigation will work, but it's going to be tough, as Zach pointed out. So that series of evaluations, the rutting test, the rutting analysis, physical characteristics, chemical characteristics, just to confirm a few things that you might suspect are right, and this irrigation test are pretty powerful to give you an idea of what kind of problems are you going to encounter, especially if you're moving to a new place. I mean, Zach, if you had this information before you moved there, you might have had a little bit better handle on what you could do.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. And are there any other questions while we're at this point before we move on? And we want to move on, just do a quick comparison with Tori. John, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. I don't see any in the chat, but if anybody wants to unmute and ask a question, feel free. This is not meant to be just us three. If anybody wants to just unmute and chime in, that's kind of what the Turf Chat was about.
Yeah.
Hey, Larry, this is Beth.
Yes. Hey.
Are you going to show them how to find the soil orders off this? Because I think hey, Zach, do you know, are those vertisols or mollisols that you're managing there? Those sure sound like they're soils with a vertic character. I mean, the way your descriptions of them. What do y'all think?
Larry would probably be good on that.
I didn't look at the soil orders on that. I just go straight for the for the gusto.
I just think that's a really cool tool that this thing supplies, because then you can, somebody like Zach looking, it's like, oh crap, those are going to have a high shrink swell. They're really going to be a management nightmare or not. Yeah, I don't know. I like that. I like that part of it, and I was just curious if Zach had been using that at all.
No, I don't.
I have not.
Yeah. No, we should get into that a little bit more. This is just a quickie look at the really simple stuff.
I think we found our next guest for the topic.
I think you got it. Yeah, there you go.
No, what you guys are doing is awesome. I mean, I didn't even know about that rutting function, so I'm learning a lot. Keep on. I'll shut up now.
That's all the ones we're gonna. Those are the tests that are super quick and easy to get a read on problems that are just practical management impacts on irrigated areas, which I think it helps me a lot when I'm trying to go somewhere that I don't have a clue what you're going to encounter. This really helps. It's a good communication tool also, and gives some guidance on management. So I'll just show you. Rich McIntosh at Torrey Pines couldn't make it today, but he's running about his ETs are about 0.2, so it's a little quite a bit less than Zach's seen. And the thing that's interesting about Torrey Pines is it's all pretty much the same, the CBC soil. So there's not a lot of variation there. It's CBD, and most of the difference between these are related to slope, not to the actual soils, underlying soils. And so they have just a somewhat of a problem with the rutting. So it's not bad there. So if you don't have a rutting problem, that means you can irrigate more. You can do a lot of other things that make it good, and then you're not as sensitive to rainfall events. So it's just more reliable conditions at Torrey. So it plays well most of the time. And this Carlsbad soil, you can see they're both Carlsbad, pretty much the same soil, just depending on slope. It's 84% sand, 5% clay. So that's awesome, It's perking, and we saw up at the top here, 7 micrometers per second is an inch an hour. So it's perking at about 2 inches per hour. So that means you can just turn the irrigation system on and not have to worry about it. But look at this, plant available water, 0.05 inches. So if you're if you wanted to make it through one day at 0.2 inch ET, right? That's 4. You'd have to have 4-inch roots, and they're pretty.
I did the math just in my head, Larry. Weren't you impressed by that?
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I don't even trust myself to do that one on online. But yeah, so that shows how restrictive the situation is at Torrey, because it doesn't have any water holding capacity. It moves water fast. It's a sandy soil, doesn't have enough water holding, and and Rich is working on actually doing some more sand top dressing to blend in sand and organic matter at the top, and so you can get sort of a more typical organic matter amended, better water holding capacity soil, manufactured soil at the surface. And as you'd expect from a sandy soil, it's got a exchange capacity of 0.1 to 5. So that's bad news from one perspective, that you're not holding very many nutrients very well. But unlike Zach, they're also, well, like Zach, they're using recycled water. But unlike Zach, they can get rid of the salts pretty easily with rainfall or leaching. So that's a pretty big advantage. And then for the sprinkler irrigation perspective, it's a somewhat difficult. Well, it's got somewhat of a problem. And unlike Zach, this problem is not because of slow water movements, which Zach had. This one is low water holding capacity. So you get, it's a pretty good comparison, those two courses, because you get a real big difference in perspectives on how management is required and what's done. And actually, it turns out that in both of them, kind of, there's a little bit of sand, just sort of gently, little, not heavy amounts of sand, to sort of modify that surface to get a better water holding than the base sand is here. This gravelly, loamy sand is not performing well, but it will work better with a more uniform sand and some organic matter blended in. So you want to bump up that water holding capacity and the nutrient holding capacity at the surface, so your roots don't have to be like at least 4 inches down. And with kikuyu grass, 4-inch roots would be like stretching it. It's a really shallow rooted turf. Bermuda would be much better in this situation than kikuyu grass if there was some sunlight and heat, but it's too cool for Bermudas to do really well. So kikuyu grass dominates very rapidly. I think that may be it. That was that's the end of the slides. Now we can just open it up and have some discussion about those.
Yeah, I think what I was going to say, in the interest of how we used to do these things, I don't know if everybody has a camera or is sitting, with bedhead and hair up to here and don't want to turn it on. But if you have the ability to turn on your camera, that would be great. And then we can just kind of continue the discussion a little bit. I found this, I'm not a soil scientist in the slightest. I mean, it's actually the area that's the worst for me. So like just these little kind of tips and stuff. I mean, I always direct my students to the site for their internship reports. They have to map out their area and like just look at the differences and the impact of what the soils are and how that impacts the course. But because I'm not a soils guy, I don't go into it that in depth with them. Actually, I'm glad that we're recording this, Larry, because I'm going to now put the link into their Canvas page so they can go back and watch this and see the information they can glean from the soils report. But anybody else have any comments or thoughts? Silence. That's why I like to see you, see if you're paying attention. Seeing if you're paying attention or if you're just like, running around the house, getting coffee and doing other things.
So, hey, guys, this is Beth. It's also available as a downloadable app for your cell phone called the Soil Web. And Maggie, I know she's on the call too, and I'm pretty sure the soil morphologist from the University of California is the one who developed it. And it wasn't available for a while because they were having some crotchety fits with the iPhone and paying for it. But I checked with our morphologist this morning and he said, no, it's up and it's working. So you basically can walk out to where you are and it tells you what the soil type and underlying issues are where you're standing.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is all. Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know, Larry, maybe you or Zach could speak to if you guys are using that and how you use it.
Well, I don't think, Zach, you haven't really used it too much. Am I correct about that?
Right. I mean, I haven't used it too much yet. Just kind of last 2 weeks, just discussing with you, Larry, and kind of getting into it a little bit more. But no, this sort of stuff right here, I think it's going to give me some firepower to help me get into a sand top dressing program here, at my club. It's definitely something that, I think the only way I can kind of mitigate it is through cultural practices, trying to fracture the soil. We don't pull a core on fairways. We do solid tine or we airway, we try to fracture the soil up just because we do 33,000 rounds a year at a private club. So when they come out, they get going, and we're a limited season. We're a 7-month season. So pulling a core on a fairway for us, I'm just not sure, it would just be, unfortunately, it would just be pretty invasive with how much play that we do. And so my thinking is, solid tine, deep tine, and then, get on a cultural practice program with top dressing on fairways and really trying to mitigate it that way. And, that way I can, have better conditioning as far as, a little bit firmer surface out there on the fairways, better playability, better for carts. Obviously it's going to be way better for carts. I'll be able to, if I can get, 40 tons per acre out there a year, or if I can only get 20, I think this will just help me in the long run try to establish a base where I can go and have some firepower to my board of directors and tell them, hey, I need so much, I need $30,000 worth of sand this year, and this is why. If you look at these maps, and I can kind of explain it a little bit better to them. So that's my hope. That's my, after seeing this, that was already my hope, to begin with when I first got here a couple of years ago, and just seeing what I had to deal with, and taking, pulling out my soil probe and just seeing what I had to deal with. I mean, it didn't take me long to understand that, this place is going to be pretty soggy after it rains and after I put a deep irrigation on it. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'm hoping to go with it.
Well, hey, Beth, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, let me pull up. Whoa, what just happened there? Let me just pull up the web soil survey here, and maybe you can guide us around what you like to check out. Just a minute, something happened here.
Okay.
I see what happened. Okay, just a minute. I hit the magnify button, which I always hate doing that.
Well, I'm on my cell phone, so I don't know what I'll be able to see, but
well, maybe
I've lost my computer.
Oh no.
What happened to your computer?
It has children using it because everybody's homeschooling.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just about ready to have these people go away.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay, is that showing the web soil survey?
Yes, it is. And
Okay.
so let me see here. If you go so I think it's either Soil Data Explorer or Soil Map.
Well,
And then scroll down. Oh, wait. Yeah. See, this is all the really cool stuff.
Right. So there's the suitabilities. There's a.
Yeah. Okay, wait, I'm in the wrong. Click on soil properties and qualities for me. I can't remember. So
Nope.
I spend a lot of times rummaging.
Right. I know that's one of the things you get in here, and it's really fascinating, the types of models and applications. So it's probably not there. How about just soil reports? They have an inventory. You think it might be in there? So here's the chemical classifications, and they frequently, the reports will have some extra detail about how you would pull them up, but you just click through and.
Can you? It put me into safe driving mode, so now I can't see it. Weirdly.
Okay.
But yeah, you can rummage around on there. And it'll tell you it really, like what Zach was saying, when he has to give a talk to somebody, it's really powerful because it shows things like suitability for septic tanks and what you can build on it, and you can really have your membership get pretty engaged in this. And where I find it helps is working with people that don't think it matters. And I'm like, y'all hunt, don't you? Don't you put in food plots? Aren't you looking for hunting land? And, here's this huge resource to help you put a lease in on land, and you can check it all out. And so I don't know. I just think it's a pretty neat thing.
Yeah, no, I think it's very helpful. But let me just show you, if you were going to come in and use it, there's the area of interest. This would be for other people to work with it. And this is the spot where you would outline.
There we go.
You outline the, God, boy, I tell you.
So you got your area of interest.
That's
yeah.
right. I just hit the wrong button again.
No, it's cool. And then I think it's, click on soil map for me. And I think I go scroll down. I've got it back now. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm going to go back.
There's the soil map that we showed earlier. It talks about each one of the soils.
Right. That's what I'm.
And percentage of composition of the area. So if you make your area of interest, drawing that little line around there fairly accurately, you'll give you a reasonable read on how much area you're talking about having to work with to improve, which is all except the, so it's like 87.
There you are. Yeah. So over there to the left. Yeah, that's what I was looking at. So like Fonda's silt loam, And then if you click on that, it should, yeah. And then if you go back over to the right, there it is. See all that description? Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
What I'm amazed is that somebody actually had to like get all this information and put it together. This is like so much data.
Well, I've heard from some people who have actually worked on some of the survey parts of the project in the past, and they're not all that encouraging. Some of the data is good, some of it is a little questionable. So you got to take all this stuff. You need the ground truth, but it's pretty good in most cases.
Yeah. It's only as good as the morphologist at the state university and the soil scientists that help it. And so, you know, some poor rural counties in the United States haven't had a soil survey done since like 1918. So like Larry says, it's only as good as what went into it. And if you rummage around, John, somebody at Penn State has got a filing cabinet full of the original old books that this was created from.
Right. But the steps that you take is you go to area of interest, and then you just I'll clear it.
We lost you.
It'll be back. I'm clearing the area of interest.
There you are. You're back.
And then you just come in with this. There's a sort of a parallelogram tool up here. Not parallelogram. It allows you to outline it, and you just click, you know, around the spot that you're interested in. Whoops. That magnified it up. Let me do that again. So that was the area of interest. Let me clear that again. I'm working with a trackpad, and it sometimes can be annoying.
Larry, you were like the most sophisticated person. You reminded me of like a grandpa trying to work a computer. So funny.
I know. All right. So if you just
now, in Larry's defense, in Larry's defense, this is a very bulky program. It gets cranky.
So there's the area of interest, and then once you get an area of interest in there, I recommend that you save that area of interest down here where it says export AOI, and you export it as a zipped shape file, and you just give it a name, you know. Portion of value. Oh, well, I can't get that.
I was doing a Zoom meeting with one of my grad students today, and you can share, I can take over her computer. So I don't have Sigma plot on my computer, but I took over hers and was like building graphs for her to show her how to use the program, which is a very nice function. But man, it's slow. Taking over someone's computer is just as chuggy as this website. It's just slow.
Right. And then you save this zip file, and then once it's saved, you can use it again. It saves it in your downloads, wherever your downloads folder is, and then you just when you wanted to bring it in again, you just hit import zip shape file, and then you just choose the file. And like I'll just use Valleys Country Clubs there, and this will bring in the original one that we had, and I'll say set the AOI. And there you go. So you're ready to go again. Anyway, that's the key issues on it. That's key methods for working with this thing. Those reports that I talked about are the ones that I think are really good base ones: physical, chemical, rutting, and irrigation. Good place to start with. Then if you get time to come back and look at some of these other models, they're really they are fascinating. You know, disposal of recycled water, or just wastewater by irrigation, by drip irrigation or whatever systems. Anyway, that's I think that's it.
Awesome.
I think we're good for now.
Yeah, that was good. I need to like go back to some of the courses that I consult with and put these maps together and just look at that more. Most of the stuff I do, it's not usually soil recommendations, but it would be nice just to see why things are going on in certain parts of the property. And just understand the soils.
And I'd say too, like it's those maps that Larry did for me here at Valley. Man, it's pretty dead on. Like, you know, that Nunn area, that NIB area, that again, 80% of our hand watering in that area is that, 80%. That's where we spend all our time, right in that area, 80% of our hand watering. And so hopefully our irrigation system takes care of maybe, 40% of that or 60%. We'd only have to spend 20% down there. Hopefully that does helps me out a little bit. So, but yeah, just on some of that stuff, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, it was pretty indicative of where we spend a lot of our time on troubled areas.
Yeah. Yeah, improving the irrigation system is going to really make a big difference.
And I think that power of having that visual and the maps and like scientific data, right? That you can put in presentations and tell to your membership that this is exactly why it happened. So, and I think you start to see that now with like Arbor Tech and, you know, Sunseeker and drone footage and things like that. But it's amazing some of these data things that we're collecting. Like we think it's important because it's data, and then all it is like one visual snapshot that you can put in a presentation sells the whole project. You could talk to your blue in the face, but put a good picture in there, and all of a sudden they're like, yeah, well, now it makes sense. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well, I don't want to beat a dead horse, and we've gone for about 45 minutes now. I thought since this is the first one back in a while, and many of you probably don't even know what Turf Chat was because it's been like 5 years since we've done it, I think, Larry. What we normally do at the end, just to kind of give everybody an opportunity to chime in, say what they want, if they want to, promote anything. This is a equal opportunity type situation. So we usually just go around the chat, and anybody that wants to say anything can say something. So I don't know, Damon, you're immediately to my side on my screen. You got anything to say? I haven't really caught up with you.
How do you quantify how much aerification or drainage or soil amendments per these maps? How can you quantify it?
Well, I don't think you can from the maps. I think you'd have to get some more detailed ground truth, I think, on your actual soil. So you'd probably pull some soil samples and take a look at it from a lab. So you'd send it in the lab and get the physicals. I wouldn't depend on the maps, but this will give you guidance and support that you need to get that project going, that you need to physically manipulate the soil system. You're not going to be able to spray anything on there. There's not a magic surfactant you're going to be able to use. You know, you're going to have to actually physically modify the soils. And that's going to take a little bit. You need to get it started with some actual on-ground soil tests to really give you some confidence.
And I think, you know, we talked to our students about like, how are you going to tell your membership whether something's working or not working? Well, you might use that as the base, get some ground truth data, and then keep monitoring infiltration or organic matter, you know, and then you have that data showing, look, the steps we're taking are improving the course.
And you don't have to do everything everywhere either. You can take a fairway and modify the practices on that one. It's usually going to be, if it's something like a heavy soil, well, both of these cases, it was doing something to modify the surface growing area by improving water movement in Zach's case, or improving water holding in the case of McIntosh's case. But I think it's not easy to just predict how it's going to go from these maps, because they're old. I mean, this is base data, and it's not, you don't have the turf on top and years of management also on top of that.
Check plots and side-by-side comparisons.
You betcha. That's the only way.
Yeah, that's we do it all the time.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything they want to promote or give a shout out to? That's kind of how we usually ended this. Anyway, Larry will promote you, Pace Turf, right? Everybody can go to your website and sign up for a subscription.
Yeah, we can do that. We appreciate it. It's no advertisements, totally member supported.
Yep, and you can all run out and buy my book. That would be good.
Yeah,
so I can keep drinking so I can keep ordering my Woodford from the state liquor store and have them deliver it to me. He's like, we'll sign for this. I'll sign for you. Don't worry about it. You don't have to touch anything. Here's the box. They just shove it at you, which is pretty good. Gabe or Beth or Beth, you're muted. If you were trying to say something, Gabe, you're unmuted now.
Nothing. This is Gabe. Nothing to promote. Just really looking forward to the content you guys are going to be putting forth. There's certainly no shortage of content these days, but I think there is a shortage of sort of non-scripted, real interactive content. So just looking forward to it, guys.
Yep, what Gabe said. It's just nice to have a discussion and make a few little notes as people talk about their experiences.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of these are going to end up being formed organically over time and not just be like PowerPoints. I think a lot of times what we did is if something came up on Twitter that was, you know, interesting discussion, you know, I'd reach out to Larry or whoever started the conversation and be like, why don't we just open something up and just no PowerPoint, let's just talk about it. And it was great. I love kind of doing that. And I don't remember how often we did them or when we did them, but a lot more free time at home for many people now. So we'll try to do these as much as possible. I think that the next one's going to be, well, not the next one, maybe we might do one prior to it, but next Thursday, my grad student, Maureen, who's from Kenya, Liz, Beth, Liz, I called you Liz. Beth, Maureen, right?
I
did you
do.
meet her?
Yes, I do.
She's going to give a brief overview of just golf course management in Kenya and what it was like and some of the difference. So it'll be another kind of PowerPoint, but I might try and pull some other people in to, from other areas. Maybe Damon, maybe you'd want to be in talking about managing golf courses in the Dominican Republic. Yeah, we're going to just try and see if we can keep these things going and let people come in, promote what they want, chat, chime in where they can. I think it's good.
Love it.
Well, if you're going to have Maureen talking about kikuyu grass, you'll get a response out of California. So as soon as you get that ready, then we'll get the people out here interested.
She reviewed it. I reviewed it, and it was more of a, this is kind of some of the differences, but yeah, and it's like, these are the pests we deal with. These are the things that we have. Maybe I'll get her to target a little bit more, maybe add a slide or two on kikuyu and some of the unique challenges. I think in their fairways, I don't know how much management they did. She went through it today, and I was like, wow, she's like 4 days a week. They work like 4 hours. They're not allowed to be on the course any other time. And so some interesting things, but yeah, maybe we'll do that and try and promote it, towards the kikuyu part of it. I don't know how much she has in terms of like actual management that's relevant to them, but she might. I don't know.
No, she's good. She was at the GCSA had a kikuyu grass session. God, last year or
Yeah.
year before? Yeah, last year. Yeah, we lost a speaker, and she stepped up and made a presentation just out of the blue, and she did a really good job. And it was awesome. Sort of saved a portion of that program. So yeah, that'd be nice to have her on. That'll be good.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. I'm excited. I think that's the GIS where I met her. She reached out to me on Twitter and was like, I want to think about doing grad school. So we met, and then I found out that she did that like impromptu, just got pulled into that last minute. That's pretty impressive for a young person from another country to just come in and zip into it.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have anything last to say? I'll give a last word to whoever wants. Damon, are you looking for any employees or anything? I know that an intern fell through from me.
No, we got 90 employees right now. We're trying to keep busy with this curfew. So we're pretty strict curfew, 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. If you're on the street, you get arrested.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah, very, very strict here.
Holy cow.
Well, out here they're going to have a protest Sunday in our neighborhood. So
are they? Yeah, I'm thinking of just taking a flight to Georgia so I can get a haircut.
Right. Might as well get a tattoo while you're there.
Yeah, and a massage.
Yeah, and a colonic or something like that.
You could do that by social distancing, right? All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming. Zach, obviously, for sharing your story and information. Larry, for pulling all this together at such short notice. Look forward to more of these and hanging out with people. And if anybody has any suggestions, if anybody watches this afterwards, just shoot me a message. Like we'll try to pull these together as much as people are willing to sit in here. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and end the recording. But thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you participating.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks, Zach.
Yep. Thank you.